right, here we go, baby. Another episode of Porter. Find your inner pirate. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great, brother. How you doing, Jay?
Oh,
Happy Sunday.
thank you. It's been a good Sunday. Got all the family over here right now. My niece and nephews. So we just been hanging out. We were watching America's Funniest Videos. My oldest nephew, Ollie, he can't get enough of it. He thinks it's hilarious.
First time seeing it?
No, it's like one of those. It's like his favorite. Whenever they come over here, they come over a lot on Sundays, and um, it's just always on, and he just loves it. That and Family Feud with
Yeah.
Steve Harvey, that can get rowdy.
Oh, I love that show. It's just hours of entertainment.
It's just what we got to do on our Sundays till we get NFL back.
It's right around the corner,
It is,
man. We are so close.
You watching any
I'm getting
preseason?
excited about. Hell yeah, dude! I'm getting excited about games.
Hell yeah.
We were rushing home yesterday through the highway so I could get home and watch the Chiefs play, and they did not disappoint. It's been fun.
Right on, brother. I love it. I haven't watched as much as I've wanted to, but I went to the Rangers game yesterday, and that kind of took up the whole day. But I watched a little bit of Cowboys Seahawks, but it didn't start till like 9:00. I was like, "Fuck!" I was getting tired. But my dad, he loves Deuce Vaughn, the running back the Cowboys drafted. He's out of Kansas State, so we watched him a lot in his college career. And look out for that guy, Drew. I don't know if he probably won't be relevant in fantasy football just because he's going to be like, he was kind of thought to maybe not even make the team, but he's electric. And I think he's going to be a really good backup for Tony Pollard.
Oh, I'm very familiar with him. He was, Jay, he was the K-State running back. I saw a lot of him highlights in my Twitter feed just because so many of the people I follow are K-State fans.
Oh, yeah.
He's a Darren Sproles, man. This guy is
yeah.
for real. We were watching him every week, just put up highlights. He's so shifty. He's got such good vision. He's going to be good.
Yeah,
and playing for his dad. I think we all saw that draft day video. That was awesome.
Yeah. My dad was pumped when they drafted him, so that's what preseason's about. You're just getting to see some of these guys, late round picks. You know, they're guys. These guys are competing their asses off trying to get a roster spot.
Yeah.
And how's your boy? What's the latest with the Chiefs, Drew, and Justin Ross? I saw he got hurt a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so all right. This will lead us right into it because today we are going over last round fantasy football wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a big target list that we're going here. So we're just going to kind of run through them, and literally the very first one on the list is Justin Ross. Jay, if we chat again 1 week from now and I did this last round wide receiver, Justin Ross would not be on it because Justin Ross is not going to be a last round wide receiver after today.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he is. So the word that everybody has been saying is if this guy stays healthy, he's potentially one of the greatest undrafted free agents ever. And he's the thing is he's got the chance because you're looking at this Chiefs wide receiver room and there's really no alpha. There's really no, there's no Tyreek Hill. There's no Stephon Diggs. There's no AJ Brown. There's no Jamar Chase. We have Kadarius Toney, who's got a hamstring that's literally a piece of bologna.
Yeah, I feel
and
that.
So we're sitting there watching the game last night, and Justin Ross comes in. He comes in a couple of times during the Mahomes drives, but really he steps in a lot during uh who's our backup? Shane Buechele, the
Yeah.
second stringer, Blaine Gabbert, the third stringer, and even a lot of Chris Olatakun, the fourth stringer. And Jay, he was embarrassing these cornerbacks.
Hell yeah.
He was embarrassing the D backs because he's healthy. You know, basically his injury was a spinal contusion, so it's not nothing. I mean, it's a serious injury that he sustained, but he looks to be fully over it. He's running very crisp routes, and he is a one-on-one machine.
Yeah.
Where if you're one-on-one with him, he is going to fake you out, and he's going to get himself open. And that's what's exciting as a Chiefs fan is we haven't had that guy really ever in the Mahomes
Hmm.
era, besides Tyreek, obviously. Um,
And he's just such a huge target. That's
he's
what kind of
big. Yeah.
differentiates himself from the rest of those wide out targets.
So, the whole thing is will he get opportunities? The question, so he used to be like going around ADP 215,
Hmm.
which is basically undrafted. And right now he's sitting at 191. So he has hopped up considerably the past couple of weeks. The one thing that has been keeping him in this last round area is he going to make the team? I
Right.
mean, that's been the question up until now. He's going to make the team.
Hell
There,
yeah.
he's too valuable. They could not get rid of him because he'd be snatched up in a second. Um, so he's going to make the team, and the only thing left is going to be is he going to get playing time as uh, a studier of Andy Reid wide receivers. I will say that is a valid question. My
Yeah.
guess is, my guess is he's going to be limited early on in the season, and if he is available and healthy late in the season, I think he's going to be a big piece of their final game playoff push.
I like that call, man. Justin Ross. Nobody's been hired. Nobody's shouted him out as early as Drew Porter did. So I hope that comes to fruition because that'd be a great call by you. It's just all about opportunity, and he's gotten that opportunity in training camp and these preseason games to kind of show what he can do. And I'd be excited too, Drew, if I was a Chiefs fan because Justin Ross did absolutely everything he wanted to in college, and there's no reason he should have gone undrafted. It just was a bunch of injury concerns, and I'm sure I want to say he probably injured himself. But that spinal injury. Is that a new injury, Drew, or
No,
is
that
that?
was so that was when he was at Clemson,
Oh, right, right.
and um, it basically before that, I mean, he was the top wide receiver in his class in his group,
Yeah.
and that injury obviously kind of took him out of the running for a couple of years. Um, but he declared for the draft, even though he wasn't. Teams thought that he wasn't really healthy. He still declared himself for the draft. Um, I saw in projections he could have gone anywhere from kind of the fifth to seventh round
Hmm.
during mock drafts. And he was always kind of that guy like, oh, do you take a late round flyer on him? Nobody did. And Chiefs signed him and they went patient with him, sat him out last year. And
Uh huh.
it just looks like that experiment has hit. He's
Yeah.
here. He's
It's
here.
interesting because teams will take guys off their draft board completely with injuries like that. So I'm sure there was just a lot of teams around the league that didn't even consider drafting him. And
Yeah.
the Chiefs, Andy Reid, man, he's always had an eye for offensive talent, and Brett Veach, the GM, very smart guy in his own right. They found them a good one, undrafted Justin Ross. I I agree with what you say, Drew. If he can get opportunities, because he's just a big target, and Mahomes hasn't really had that. Just like big wide receiver he can throw it up to. So I've definitely drafted Justin Ross at least once in my best ball drafts because I think he could have 2 or 3, 4 or 5 games where he could get a touchdown. I think he could be Andy Reid could utilize him in the red zone.
No doubt. And it sounds like somebody in your party is a little bit excited.
That was
I'm
my
just going to
dad. I
take
don't
it.
know what's going on.
I'm going to take it that he's, he agrees with us and he is just as excited for Justin Ross. So we'll move on. Well, let's just say that um, I think Justin Ross is a buy at his
Yeah,
current ADP.
he's your guy. He's your
He
sleeper of
is.
the year.
He's my sleeper. Um, and speaking of guys who were injured last year, didn't really get an opportunity to see him. Um, that kind of brings us right into our next guy who was a rookie last year. Um, and he also dealt with an injury. He got injured last training camp, had a torn ACL,
Ugh.
and we're talking about John Mechie of the Houston Texans.
Uh
He's
huh.
got a rookie quarterback, CJ Stroud. He also has a very unsure wide receiver room that he's in. Presumably maybe Nico Collins is the number one over there after the Brandon Cooks exit.
Uh
But
huh.
you know, this is John Mechie. What do we think of him? Do you have any initial thoughts on John
Well,
Mechie?
yeah, you mentioned the injury. That's kind of what set him back. But man, when he was at Alabama, Alabama was interesting because they went through that time where they had Devontae Smith, Jerry Judy, just all kinds of first round talent. And then in the last couple years, they haven't really had that alpha dog. And a lot of people thought it was John Mechie, but he just got injured. And I think that's going to be the name of the game with this guy, Drew.
I
Is
see.
we got to see him. I just haven't seen him play enough.
We haven't seen him play, but Jay, they took him last year with the number 44 pick in the draft, second
Right.
round.
Yeah, no, he's got talent. That's why a lot of people were Alabama. They were kind of thinking he was the next in line of the greats there, and he just never really could put it fully together. But very interesting late round target here. Well, he's got the rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud. Did you see any of his performance in preseason
Oh
so
yeah,
far?
I did.
He
Yeah, he
hasn't
looks
looked
good.
so hot. I hope
Oh
it's
really?
just
I thought he looks better than Bryce Young, I'll say.
yeah, yeah. We're gonna talk Panthers here later.
Yeah.
But John Mechie, yeah. What do you think, Drew?
Well, I think they're going to give him opportunities. Um, the injury thing is just another one that I just don't know if I can even have an opinion on that. I don't know if it's fair to say that someone is injury prone or not. I
Yeah.
tend to just have a natural bias to not drafting guys who are injured a lot. That's just kind of me. But I look at John Mechie and I say at pick 192, this is a guy I'm not really expecting much from. Hell, if I can get even a little bit of a discount on him, like I'm not going to target him, above ADP, but if I can get a little discount on him and
Uh huh.
John Mechie kind of falls into my lap, I just have no problem taking him if I'm in
Okay.
need of a wide receiver. Last round, 44th pick in the draft last year, unsure wide receiver room with the exit of Brandon Cooks. I just think he's going to get some opportunities. I
Yeah.
don't mind taking him.
I like what you're saying there. And John Mechie also, I think it's important to note that he had leukemia.
Yeah.
And he's overcome that. And the Texans, especially with their, I think they have a new GM in charge there. I can't keep it straight, but I know within the last couple years they really value character in the guys they brought in. So John Mechie seems like a really good guy, a guy we should all be rooting for, and that usually can carry itself over into the off season. This going to be a guy that probably takes his training seriously, and I think I'd love to stash this guy late
Yeah.
in the draft.
Yeah, so I think maybe both of us are kind of on the same thinking here. You know,
Yeah,
is John Mechie a buy? Well, he's maybe, can you get a discount?
yeah. He's
Can
not.
you
I'm
get
not
him
going
on
to go out of
sale?
my way to draft him earlier than he's slotted, but definitely a guy I'm going to keep an eye out for.
Yeah. And that's why I like this late round wide receiver play. Because, you know, if you kind of shore up the rest of your team early on in the draft, you can just, in best ball, you can go bulk at the wide receiver position. I have some teams where I've left the draft with 11 wide receivers.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
something I'm kind of curious about, Drew, because I've been doing all these drafts, and like towards the end, I'm like, well, do I need like three quarterbacks and three tight ends, or because there's
well, it just
sometimes.
depends how you construct your roster. Um, I I always love to basically take one position and punt it and say I don't care about that position early on in
Uh
the
huh.
draft. And then I hit that position in the end of the draft with bulk.
Uh huh.
Just kill it with numbers. And that's why I find myself drafting, you know, a lot of these guys and really trying to make a decision on each one of them. And
Right.
there's a guy coming up, actually two of them that are from the same team. I think
Okay.
we should just kind of go over them together, um, and
Sure.
because they're so close in ADP. So again, we're looking at the kind of last round of the draft. You're going bulk at the wide receiver position. You're sitting there and you have both Paris Campbell of the New York Giants,
Uh huh.
and you also have Darius Slayton of the New York Giants.
Oh yeah.
And they're both sitting there available, and you're at pick, let's say, 200. And you can have one of them. Do you have any hunch on kind of where you're leaning between these two? Paris Campbell came in as a free agent from Indianapolis, and Darius
Yeah.
Slayton was there last year. Any initial thoughts?
Well, Paris Campbell, I will say, athletic guy, tore it up in the combine when he came out of Ohio State. He was really been a better college player than NFL player. I would take Darius Slayton here. I think Darius Slayton's kind of underrated.
Hmm.
I think Dayball kind of. I don't know what his stats were last year. Give me one sec.
I'm pulling him up here right now. So last year, it doesn't look like he had a whole lot last year. He had
Okay.
one reception, four targets, and 17 yards. So he must
Yeah,
have been injured.
it's interesting. I guess his first 2 years in the league were a lot better than last year. So I'm kind of holding out hope for him. But yeah, I like that we're talking about both of these guys together because I think one of them will have a good season, and that's kind of all you really need to do in best ball here late. If you're patient enough to wait and maybe get two receivers late in a big draft, I kind of like that strategy. What are your thoughts on these two guys?
I mean, to be honest, if I don't have to take him, either of these guys, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Um, because, okay, you and I talked about this, a similar situation last week with the Philadelphia Eagles running backs and how there's just too many mouths to feed.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're in the same situation with the Giants where
Yeah.
I'm willing to do that for a team like the Chiefs that is going to have a lot of wide receivers where they spread the ball around, but the Chiefs are going to be in the top teams, you know, the one of the top 3 teams in passing.
Yeah.
The Giants are not going to be, but
Yeah.
just to
Great
read off a
point.
little bit of the list, this is who, if you're going to take Paris Campbell or Darius Slayton. They're going to have to compete with Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, Jalen Hyatt, Jamison Crowder, Sterling Shepard, and Wandale Robinson.
Yeah.
It's a lot of names there, and I just don't know who it's going to be. I want my last round player to actually put up points.
Right.
So it's a big thing for me. I'm looking for a point score, someone I can be sure is actually going to put up points and isn't just going to do nothing and sit on the, because a wasted roster spot can literally tank your team
Oh yeah.
in best ball. So I just don't like either of them, Jay. I really
Yeah.
don't, because I don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's smart. That's smart analysis because the Giants, even if they are efficient like they were last year, they're not going to air it out. And I don't know if it's worth it drafting either of these guys.
You want to talk about one of the weirdest situations that I've felt during this offseason?
Let's hear it.
The laissez faire, just sort of meh feeling towards Hunter Renfro.
Oh yeah.
What happens there, Jay? I mean, have you seen some of the stuff that the Raiders have been reported on this offseason about Hunter Renfro?
I don't think so. What's going
They're
on with him?
they were thinking about, so they early on in the offseason they tried to trade him. I remember hearing Hunter Renfro trade rumors, and then that nothing materializes there. Then I hear Raiders are considering cutting Hunter Renfro.
Hmm.
And
What?
it's like, didn't this guy have like 1,000 yards like a season ago? What's, I mean, it was 2 seasons ago, but what's the deal with Hunter Renfro? Why the hate on him? He's,
It's
look,
crazy. That's crazy.
this is a team that has very little depth. Unlike what we were just talking about with the Giants, the Raiders, they have Devontae Adams. They have that, they signed, I believe, someone from the Giants, or the Patriots, Jacoby Myers.
Yeah.
Raiders bring in Jacoby Myers, and then nobody. It's literally nobody after that. Hunter Renfro. What are we doing? Why are we drafting
That's
Jacoby Myers way, way, way ahead of Hunter Renfro?
This is why I love talking this fantasy stuff with you, Drew, because I had no remembrance that Hunter Renfro only had 330 yards last year. That blows my mind
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the year before he was a Pro Bowler,
right.
or maybe, yeah, I think he was. That's I didn't realize that, and I guess them bringing in Jacoby Myers, they also brought in DeAndre Carter, the former Charger, and he's kind of like a special team slot player.
Yeah,
And it's interesting with Devontae there, but they traded Darren Waller, so you would think there's
right.
enough targets to go around to a guy like Hunter Renfro, who's just been. I mean, he's always open. It feels like. I guess Josh McDaniels, man. I just being a little bit of a Raiders fan, I just do not like some of the things Josh McDaniels done since he's been there. Just don't really think he's a good head coach, and they're talking about trading one of the grittiest guys on the team. I mean, I'm sorry. You can throw out all the prototypical white boy adjectives to describe this guy. Gym rat. I mean, stays after practice, but that's what he does, and that's how the kind of player he's been going back to his days in college at Clemson. So that's very surprising to me that they would think about trading him. Um, yeah, he's. I have no idea what to expect from him now because he kind of looks like he kind of fell in the doghouse a little bit.
It's a guy who is 27 years old, and I think we saw them look to try and trade him. They didn't get anything for him. I don't think they're in a position where they can or would cut him. So all that leaves me with is that he's gonna score some points.
Yeah.
He, he's gonna score some points in fantasy. And I think he has I tend to think that he actually has a decent upside. You never know what can happen with injuries, but if God forbid something was to happen to Devontae, then all of a sudden is he one of, if not the best wide receiver on the roster?
Yeah, no doubt.
I just think there's a certain floor built in with him because I'm making the assumption that he makes the team, and I don't
Yeah.
think that's crazy. I think
It
he's
would
going to
be
make the team,
insane to cut him.
right? And crazier things have happened, no doubt. You could give up multiple first round picks for Russell Wilson or something, but crazy things happen in this league. So I will never put it past, he could get cut, but I just think there's a certain floor built in
Right.
with Hunter Renfro, and I think there's a ceiling as well, like we talked about with Darren Waller exiting. I I draft him. I get him a lot actually.
Yeah, I agree. I think as long as he's out there, you would think I've never seen him just like be out there and just like not ever. You feel like he's always open on third down. Like this is a guy I would target late too.
Yeah. We're looking for point scorers. And speaking of, it brings us to another guy
Who we
that
got?
I'm excited about this one, Jay. Um, I've been drafting him. He might be one of my most drafted wide receivers in underdog. I've
Uh
been
huh.
going at him the whole year, and for some reason, he has not really budged going up in ADP. He's sitting here at 199, and we're talking about Khalil Shakir from the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, I like him.
Do, do you know much about him? I mean, he didn't play much last year, but he was a rookie, and when he
Yeah,
did play, he was pretty solid. Do you have any kind of thoughts on him early on before we get into it?
just from his college days at Boise State, he was a stud. He was their best player on their team. And then, my brother-in-law is a big Bills fan, so whenever they drafted him, I told him, I said, I like this guy a lot. Keep an eye out for him. So he didn't do too much last year, but a guy I'm high on.
So for me, with Khalil Shakir, I look at this as all right. I've got a little nugget for you. So um, uh, the Bills coach, remind me his name,
Uh, Sean McDermott.
McDermott. So McDermott has an interview that I happened to see where he's speaking with McAfee, and he's just listing off the weapons for the Buffalo Bills, and he names like four guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He talks James Cook, he talks Stephon Diggs, he talks Dalton Kincaid, and he talks Khalil Shakir. And this was early on in the off season. And
Right.
so I just look at the team and I see Buffalo Bills. They're going to be a high powered offense. Just no matter what. I mean, it's just they've got their Super Bowl. They're loaded up. Their Super Bowl window. They're loaded up, and they throw the ball a lot with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And I just look at a guy like Khalil Shakir, who, they eased him into it his rookie year. He showed some promise whenever he did get in the game. I think this guy also has a a pretty high floor, and I
Yeah.
think he's got a really high ceiling, especially sitting there at 199. Jay, I've been drafting him a lot. If he has a great year, I'm gonna do good with him because it's just such a cheap investment for a guy that I think really has a lot of upside on this Buffalo
Yeah.
Bills offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think also like I just think he fits nicely in their wide receiver trio um with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. I think he comes in there and like Gabe Davis, he's good, but he hasn't really taken that next step like a lot of people thought he could be like a wide receiver one. And I'm not saying Shakir can be a wide receiver one, but man, I think he could be just as good as Gabe Davis. And who
No doubt.
knows, maybe he. I bet they all three are on the field together. But Shakir, young guy, they let Isaiah McKenzie walk
Yeah.
in free agency. I think they're high on him, like you mentioned. That McDermott mentioned him in the press conference earlier in the offseason. This is definitely a guy they want to get involved in their offense. So
Yeah.
I agree with everything you just said.
I mean, sitting there at 199, I just think he's a no-brainer.
100%.
And as compared to a guy like Gabe Davis, who you would have to get at about 80. So I just
And
would way
he's a
rather
guy that
take
he always stuck out to me watching Boise State. He was their best player and a guy I've always high on for sure.
Speaking of Boise State, just a quick one. I personally can't stand a blue football field.
It's
What are
such
your
an
thoughts?
eyesore, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
And when they wear the blue uniforms, it's just
Uh,
bullshit because you can't see their players. It's just they just blend into the field. It's
Camo.
fucking bullshit.
It is. Uh, anyway, onward we go, Jay. We're more than halfway through this list, so
Let's go.
um, we're making it through. Just to kind of set it up again, you're in the last round of your fantasy football draft. You're looking at wide receivers that you can fill out your roster. You're looking at high ceiling guys, and who's sitting there right up there for you is Richie James at pick
Oh,
199. Richie James of the Kansas City Chiefs, previously with the Giants. He had his press conference after signing, and he said he had multiple suitors. A lot of people wanted to sign him, but he he said to the Chiefs media he wants to be something great, and he knows that he has that in him,
uh huh.
and he feels like Kansas City is the best place to unleash him.
Hey, I like that.
There with
I
me,
like that
Jay?
positivity. Yeah. I uh
You there with me?
I mean, he was decent last year at the Giants. He's got is he going to come in there and be the starting slot guy? Can you Drew, can you tell me who's going to be the starting when the Chiefs come out week 1 against the Lions? Who's the and they come out in 11 personnel. They need 3 receivers on the field. Is he going to be in there?
Jay, as it looks right now, he might be.
This is why I can't
Let's.
get fired up about the Chiefs guys, even though I like the Justin Ross call. Because it's
I
like,
mean,
it's going to be MVS, it's going to be
Sky Moore.
uh, Sky Moore,
So
and then it's
Sky
like, it
Moore
could
is,
be like one of 6 other people,
yeah.
you
That's
know?
why I really do think Justin Ross is a later in the season kind of guy. And for
Uh
that reason,
huh.
I think Richie James is going to be an earlier in the season kind of guy. Um,
Okay.
so Richie James, he has impressed a lot during camp. And here's a little nugget for you. There was some squabbling on Twitter. Some people who were just arguing and saying, "Oh, Richie James isn't going to make the team. He's 28 years old, blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
And guess who chimes into the chat?
Who?
Patrick Mahomes' trainer.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's very very plugged in, right? I mean, he's the closest guy to Mahomes. He's at every practice. He sees it all. And he chimes in and says, Richie is a playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
So
He is.
he is. And I just think he's going to get some playing time. Um, is he going to
I
be the
didn't
Chiefs'
even.
number one receiver? No. No, he just won't. Will he be a point scorer? Yes.
Yeah, if he gets the snaps, man, he should do it. And I think it's important too. The Chiefs, they got a lot of young guys on that offense. I think it's important to have a guy, a 27-year-old like Richie James, who's kind of been through it, has that experience. Him and Valdez Scantling, kind of the elder statesman of that wide receiver room.
No doubt.
So yeah, I think the Giants and Dayball, they schemed him up pretty well last year. He had some decent games. I think he'll have some decent games for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
That's all we're
If
really
you'd
looking
ask me
for.
if you'd ask me right now who to target and who to fade, I would say fade Sky Moore at his current ADP. He's just risen too high. Um, Fade Valdez Scantling at his ADP. He's just he hasn't really shown it this preseason and this training camp. He's just shown exactly what he is, and I think he's going to be a guy that starts off and then MVS is going to get supplanted by Justin Ross by the end of the year.
Oh baby, what a call!
That's my call. And I would say some guys to target are Justin Ross at his current ADP and Richie at his current ADP. I think you might get similar levels of play from Richie and MVS.
Uh huh.
The only difference is you're going to take Richie 50 picks later.
Right.
So I'd
No, yeah,
target him,
that's a good way to look at it. I think.
but I don't think he has a huge upside.
Yeah. Yeah, me either. These are all guys we're just hoping can go off a few games for you.
If you
And
went risky with your wide receiver room early, take a guy like Richie late
uh huh.
because he's for sure going to be somebody who can get in and he can provide you with some points every single week. And he can just make sure that you're not going to have a blank slot in wide receiver room. He's got a low floor, or I mean, a high floor.
Yeah, and that's valuable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of high floor, high ceiling, next guy we're going into has an incredibly high ceiling, Jay. I'm sure you can tell me plenty about his college career. I never watched him at Stanford, but I heard great things. And
Uh,
that's rookie Michael Wilson.
eh, I'll be honest, Drew. I don't know much about him. A rookie out of Stanford.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You
So,
might have to take charge on this one.
okay, Michael Wilson in
Stanford was
2020.
awful last year.
Well, this guy, I've seen him in the preseason. I saw him yesterday. He is the real deal.
Okay, this
Um,
is a sleeper, Drew. I love it.
he
This is a
he
real sleeper.
he is. He fell to so he was in the third round, but he was supposedly a guy they said could be like a first rounder. But he has had so many injuries. His collarbone, I'm reading here. Um, he got injured in 2020, then got cleared, and then he got injured again in 2022.
Uh huh.
And they drafted him in the third round. But this is a guy who can kind of play. He can play the X. He can play the slot. He can go all over. And I have seen him really pop off with some training camp highlights, and I saw him take a touchdown yesterday.
Uh
So
huh. Yeah, this is
Michael
what
Wilson,
preseason's all about. Finding a guy like this.
it is, dude. That's why I chose the wide receivers to talk about this week. It's just there's some guys down here that I really feel are worth drafting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. This is crazy. I've never even heard of the guy. Stanford has just been so bad. It's shocking to me they have a good receiver coming out because they haven't been able to throw the ball forward since Andrew Luck left. Like they are just miserable, and they're one of the few teams now with all this conference realignment, Stanford's kind of sitting there with their dick in their hand, and it's because they've just been so bad. They've had Brian Shaw be their head coach, and he's just one of the most overrated coaches, and he finally got fired last year. So I've never heard of this guy, but
Well, you're
in the
you're looking
Cardinals
at a guy who's,
offense,
huh?
I think in that Cardinals offense without Hopkins there, I mean, he could carve himself out a nice little role.
He's right behind the depth chart right now. He is behind Rondale Moore and Marquise Brown.
Yeah, I mean, he fits like a glove right there in that third wide receiver.
He really does.
Now, who's
It
going to be throwing him balls the first 5 weeks?
could be Clayton Tune.
Clayton Tune. I can't believe it. He's going to be a week 1 starter.
But listen, if this is a guy who, it's another one of those, this team kind of takes a flyer on a guy in the third round. Can he stay healthy? He's already flashed that he has the skills that bet could pay off. Are
Uh-huh.
we sitting here saying in the last rounds that the bet with Michael Wilson has it already paid off just from seeing the, he's making the highlight reel? Can we already kind of say this guy can step into one of the worst rosters in the NFL and actually be a shining star for them this season?
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that playing out for sure.
I try and take him when I can at 202 ADP.
Hell yeah. That's a real sleeper, Drew. I love it. You're just dialed in right now. No, nobody's dialed in on the fantasy scene right now like Drew Porter. I mean, he's
Well,
pulling out guys I haven't even heard of before.
I know you've heard of our next guy. We're sitting at 203, and this is a guy, honestly, Jay, I've been watching. I was out on him early, and I've been out on him, and I've watched his ADP just fall about 5 points every week.
Yeah.
Used to be sitting up at the 170s, and that's Mecole Hardman of the New York Jets.
Uh-huh.
Former Kansas City Chief, former second round pick. He had some real success with jet sweeps in Kansas City. That's kind of, he called out a fan because somebody said, "Oh, great, we got a guy who can take jet sweeps." And, he responded to the fan on Twitter and said, "That ain't all I can do, bro."
Loved it.
But, it might be all he can do. What are your initial thoughts on Mecole Hardman?
Man, he's a burner. He's always been a guy that can run fast, so that doesn't surprise me. He's been a little bit of a jet sweep specialist. That's funny. But he's just a guy. He didn't play a ton for the Chiefs, and is he anything more than like a fourth or fifth receiver? I don't know. Because the Packers did bring in, they brought in Randall Cobb. They brought in some guys Rodgers
They
wanted.
brought in Alan Lazard.
Yeah.
They
So it's
they
kind of
also
a
have
loaded
Torrey.
receiving group already.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how fired up I can get about Mecole Hardman, the jet sweep specialist.
I think for Mecole Hardman to really pay off, you have to have the Jets in as kind of your Super Bowl ticket type of team.
That's
And
me.
yeah, and you're saying that the Jets are going to score a lot of points, they're going to pass the ball a lot, they're going to spread it around a lot, you know. And Mecole Hardman just gets a piece of that. And you kind of look at him as a safe floor.
Uh-huh.
But to be honest, Jay, I'm not totally sold that they're going to be a great offense. I just don't
Yeah.
know.
That
There's
offensive
a lot of
line.
to feed.
That offensive line has people worried.
Yeah.
They did you see that clip from Hard Knocks last week? It was Robert Saleh talking about the offensive line.
Yeah.
If the big boys aren't gonna change who the fuck we are, then we're gonna continue to be mediocre. That's not a word for word, but that's basically what he was saying.
It's absolute
Um,
truth.
and that's been the Jets' issue, man. If they give Rodgers some time, he's gonna hit some of these receivers. But McCole Hardman, I just kind of think he could be the odd man out because he's gonna Garrett Wilson, Lazard, Corey Davis, Cobb. They're all in front of him on the depth chart, I'm sure. But this is a guy. He's a burner, and it wouldn't surprise me if he had some deep balls.
Jay, I'm gonna say something here. You know who ruined McCole Hardman? It
Ew.
was, it was Tyreek Hill.
Oh yeah, he just wanted to be like Tyreek.
No, Tyreek Hill, to be honest, bullied him.
Really?
Yeah, I swear, dude. From the moment the Chiefs drafted McCole Hardman, Tyreek Hill challenged him to a race, and then publicly said, "Oh, I beat that kid," and he just kind of always picked on him, and he never really let McCole Hardman stop being a rookie and stop being the new guy on the block. He just that's how McCole Hardman always acted, was like, I'm still the new kid on the block. So
Well,
much potential, so much speed.
that
Never
change of
committed to it.
scenery could be good for him then.
It could. It could.
That's interesting.
But Jay, he had his opportunity for that last year.
Yeah,
Tyreek
he
Hill
did.
was off the team. He was penciled in to be, a guy who could get a lot. And to be honest, his numbers last year were inflated from little touchdowns, dink and dunk here and there that Andy Reid manufactured for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I'm not a buyer on him. I've been out on him all off season, but I, it's not to say he can't have a good season. I just think there's not a whole lot of upside, and
Yeah.
I think he might be, as you were saying, kind of the odd man out.
Yeah. And could be a factor for them on special teams.
He could,
But I
yeah,
yeah, I kind of like some of these other guys in this group better than
me
him for
too.
sure.
Well, we got another one that's just kind of interesting. He's sitting there at 207. This is a guy that the Chicago Bears traded the number 33 pick in the draft for last year at the trade deadline, and that's Mapletron himself, Chase Clay.
Mapletron, I love it. Yeah, they gave up a lot to get this guy. This was kind of a polarizing trade last year when they brought him in.
It absolutely was. I think the Steelers fleeced him.
Yeah. So he's gonna be DJ Moore is gonna be wide receiver one there. It's just is the offensive line gonna block? Or they even have Darnell Mooney too, so he's gonna be like their number three.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I've just never been a big Chase Claypool guy.
yeah. Well,
He's already hurt too. It looks like.
I'm really tuned into that Chicago Bears training camp news, just because they have a crazy running back competition, and the early news out on Chase Claypool earlier in the offseason was that he looked out of shape and he just didn't, the coaching staff said something about him. They said he didn't look as good.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I was drafting him. So early on in the offseason, I said, this is a guy they traded the 33rd pick in the draft for. There's not a whole lot of competition for him in terms of
Yeah.
targets, and they think highly of him. They're going to give him the opportunities. So I was drafting him in the last round. But once I heard that, we saw his performance late in the year last year after they traded for him, it wasn't good. And then we heard early on that he was struggling, and I think his mind is kind of out of it. I actually think he's more into fashion.
Yeah, I mean, he's just had trouble finding his footing because out of Notre Dame, man, people were high on this guy because you call him Mapletron because he's got some of the most freakish athletic profiles you'll see. He's like 6'3", just a big guy for a receiver, and he can run pretty well too. So it just hasn't come together for him, and I just don't know. I think you can get excited about DJ Moore, but that's about it for pass catchers because there's just so much we don't know about Justin Fields if he can throw it or if he's going to be willing to air it out. It's I worry about drafting pass catchers on this offense because I think a lot of their offense is going to be one read, and if that first read isn't open, Justin Fields is going to tuck it and run.
Yeah.
And I think that limits the ceiling for a lot of these pass catchers on the Bears.
Well, I think he has a real shot to get some targets. It's just, will the Bears care? Will they care to keep investing in him? If they care about recouping that value of the number 33 pick, I think he's a no-brainer here in this last round.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
But I don't know if they care anymore. I mean, you can only listen. I just get so torn on this guy. I don't know how to think about him. I just
It's
haven't
a
seen plays that he's making. So what am I
yeah.
drafting here? I'm out on him.
This
I'm
is
out.
this is a put up or shut up year for Chase Claypool. That's for sure.
It is.
We'll find out this year. Um,
I I just say there's too much smoke about him being a bust that I
yeah,
just I just say I'm going to stay away from it like the Eagles running backs. I just don't know.
yeah, me too.
Okay. Last guy, we're going to finish it out with a guy who's just always been there. He's always been putting up points, and he is obviously on his downslide. I mean, he's on a steep hill down towards the end of his career. And
Oh
we're
man,
we're talking about Robert Woods of the Houston Texans.
yeah, he's an old man.
He is.
He's been around forever.
Yeah. Very
He's on the
serviceable for
Texans, huh?
yeah.
I liked him a lot on those Sean McVay Rams teams. McVay was really good at dialing him up. Um, and I want to say he tore his ACL not long, 2 years ago. And I just don't know if he's been the same guy since then.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thoughts on him. He was actually drafted by the Bills way back in the day. Had a decent career on the Bills and then went to the Rams. Now he's with the Texans, and I think this is kind of like we'll talk about with the Panthers, and we talked about that Panthers wide receiver group, Drew, on a one or two podcasts ago. I think Robert Woods is a veteran you bring in, kind of like they brought in with Adam Thielen, just veteran guy.
Yeah.
He's gonna give some sage advice to the quarterback C.J. Stroud and kind of just be a guy that can really ease a new quarterback into the NFL. So yeah, I think Robert Woods. I might be interested in drafting him late. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with everything you say, and I do think he's going to be serviceable. He's not going to score no points. I mean, they gave him money to come in and play. They didn't give him money to come in
Right.
and coach. So I think he's going to be serviceable, but here's the way I look at it. With every pick, it's not just about this guy, it's also about all the other guys that you could take.
Uh
And
huh.
I I'm gonna lead us into the end of this because I really did have some honorable mentions I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
and I
Sure.
want to talk about them in place of Robert Woods because I just
Sure.
think he's on his downhill climb. I don't think he's going to be better than he was last year. And to be honest, the guy I would target is the guy right after him. And funny enough, the guy who's taking his place on the Los Angeles Rams, and that's Puka Nakua.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Tutu Atwell,
No,
but
Puka
that's a good
Nakua.
name too.
Yeah, consider adding him to the all names list.
Yes.
Puka, he's a rookie this year. He's absolutely been lighting up the highlight reel.
Hell yeah.
There's a lot of buzz around him. He's sitting at 211, literally 1 point behind Robert Woods. I would like to take Puka Nakua. I think he's I think he is on his incline rather than his decline, and he finds himself in a lot of opportunity over there in Los
Uh
Angeles.
huh.
Another guy I would consider, couple slots down at ADP 214 is Mac Hollins of Atlanta
Uh huh.
Falcons. He was very good last year for the Raiders. For some
Yeah.
reason, he's just sitting here at the end of the draft and he's lighting up the highlight reel in training camp. And he doesn't have a great quarterback, but he doesn't have much wide receiver competition. I love Mac Hollins.
Yeah, I like him too.
Two others, and then we're going to hand it over. Uh, Cedric Tillman of the Browns, rookie this year. You can get him in the last round. I think he has also been doing really well in training camp. I just think they're going to give him opportunities, and I don't know if you know anything about him from college.
No,
Cedric,
not really.
I check him out. He's an interesting guy, and the last guy, with everything going on with Jameson Williams in Detroit, I
Yeah.
love Josh Reynolds.
Yeah.
Detroit.
Josh Reynolds is a name. I mean, people shouldn't sleep on Josh Reynolds.
I would take Josh Reynolds before Robert Woods. I think he offers a floor and a ceiling on certain games of best ball.
Uh huh. Yeah, I agree. I like that last one for sure.
That's all I've got, Jay. This is your last round wide receiver chat. These are guys who you really should consider taking.
Yeah, that was good stuff. Good to break down that crop of receivers right there. I really like. Who would you say is your favorite out of that group?
I mean, obviously, my favorite I think is going to be Justin Ross.
Yeah,
I just think he's going to be a guy that at the end of the year, I think you could be looking at a guy who could potentially be scoring 30 points in a game.
that'd be awesome. I want that to happen for you so bad. You've been leading that bandwagon all
uh,
off season.
the most drafted guy I have on this list is Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, that's who I was gonna say is my favorite of these guys. I think he could really come into his own, and maybe this is a hot take, but I think he could have more. He could have a more productive year than who's the wide receiver two on
Gabe,
there?
Gabe Davis.
Yeah, Gabe Davis. I was blanking on his name, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at that just because Shakir. We talked about him enough, but really an interesting guy. Um, NFC South, Drew.
Yeah.
Don't want to be negative, but this is the worst division in the NFL, isn't it?
Oh, come on.
I mean, we got Desmond Ritter as the only returning quarterback out of any of these teams. Yeah, it was hilariously bad last year, Drew. I mean, the
Was.
lifeless Bucks won the division at 8-9. The rest of the division was 7-10. I mean,
I have some hot takes in here. I think they'll come out as we do, but I actually think the NFC South is going to surprise a couple people.
okay, okay. Um, but just kind of division as a whole, I think when everybody says the AFC is so much better than the NFC this year, I think this division is part of it because there's not a ton to get excited about. I don't think some of these teams I don't know. We got the Saints as the favorites.
Yeah,
They're plus 130. You talked about them last week, Drew, watching that preseason game. You're high on them.
I'm very high on the Saints.
They went out. They got Derek Carr, and that's the headline move. It's just I'm gonna be interested to see Derek Carr living in a new city like New Orleans. See how the fans treat him and how Carr treats them in return. I don't know. I guess he's been in Vegas this whole time, so he should be all right.
You know what? For all the pressure that he was under last year, I mean, you remember it. They they went all in for him, right? They
Mm-hmm.
traded for Devontae Adams. They signed Chandler Jones,
Yep.
defensive end. And they just really kind of put all of their chips in the table with the Raiders last year. And the literally the thing that got me on them was before the preseason game even started with Chiefs versus Saints, Derek Carr did an interview and he was cool as a cucumber, just calm, just looked very refreshed and very happy. He's out of the headlines. He's just been working with John Gruden.
Hell yeah.
And Jay, he doesn't have scrubs catching the ball for him. I mean, he's got some good guys
Oh
catching
yeah.
the ball. We can go up and down his list of tight ends and the weapons he's got there. We can go up and down the list of running backs. And
Mm-hmm.
there's three of them that I love there. And then we can talk about his wide receivers. He's got Chris Olave, who had a standout rookie year. He's got Rashid Shaheed.
Oh yeah. That's a good name.
I'm excited about the Saints. I think Derek Carr is going to have a better year even than last year. You can just see the pressure is off and he can just play. He's
Yeah.
always been serviceable and I think he's got a very clear path to the playoffs in front of him.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Can't disagree with any of that. I think Derek Carr will have a good year. And the front office went all in on him. 4-year deal, 37.5 million a year. I mean, it's kind of crazy the way it worked out with the Raiders. They just ended up having to cut him. But the Saints, to their credit, they've been willing to spend a shit ton of money over the years, and they keep pushing the ball forward. They don't really want to try and rebuild, and I think a lot of it's to do with this division, how wide open it is.
They have
Um,
been taking the Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defensive guys. They keep signing them from us. They
yeah,
Tyrann Mathieu.
yeah.
They also signed Colin Saunders, who was a defensive tackle that can literally do a backflip.
Right.
Standing up, he can just do a backflip just in a straight stand. It's insane.
What an athlete.
They drafted pick 29 this year. They took Brian Bresee,
Yeah.
another defensive tackle who was just a monster from Clemson. They also took Isaiah Foskey at edge with
Hmm.
second rounder.
Yeah,
I
like
just
those
think they've
draft
got
picks.
some. They really have something. I think.
Yeah, and like you were saying, that this offense has some household names, like
Duh.
Michael Thomas. Remember that guy?
Yeah, I remember him.
He's been he didn't play all of last year, so hopefully he can come back and get back to his former self.
You remember Alvin Kamara?
Remember that guy? He's gonna be suspended for a little bit, and
Yeah,
you
but
know,
in his place, they have Jamal Williams. They have Kendre Miller, the third rounder from TCU.
yep. I think he's gonna be a big play guy on this offense.
Jay, another guy. I'm just looking at their draft here. They took A.T. Perry, and he scored a touchdown against the Chiefs.
Yeah, he's a guy out of Wake Forest, I believe. He was a home run threat on their team. Guy I talked a little bit about with Wake Forest in the podcast last week doing ACC. That's a guy they're going to miss a lot.
This is a team that if I was a betting man, I would be smashing the New Orleans Saints making the playoffs.
Well, they're plus 130 to win this division, so I might hop on that because I do think we talk a little bit about their defense. Cam Jordan, he's kind of been the face of the franchise since
Yeah.
Drew Brees retired, and I think he's a great leader. We talked about Brian Brzee, Isaiah Falsky. I think those three guys could do some good things up front. I don't know if they have a lot of depth up there. I think
They
I
do.
was
They have Colin Saunders as well. They signed him
oh yeah.
for a couple million a year. That guy is good. He
Uh-huh.
will he will get into the backfield and he will run a quarterback down. I'm talking a big man who's fast, athletic. Chiefs really wanted to sign him. And Saints took him.
Mhm.
They offered him
And
a starting position.
the middle linebacker Demario Davis, I love him. He's one of the better linebackers in all of the NFL.
Yeah.
And their secondary is solid. I want to see Marcus Lattimore get back to playing the Pro Bowl level he's capable of. I think he kind of had an off year last year, but there's a lot of things to get excited about with this Saints team.
Tyrann Mathieu.
The Honey Badger. I mean, they got one of the best home field advantages too in the Superdome. It's
Yeah.
always a tough place to go in and win. Andrew, you're gonna like this schedule, easiest in the NFL.
Oh my God.
+4 on the net rest edge. So
This
yeah,
is
I think
the
I'm gonna ride
biggest
this, Drew. I think I'm gonna ride Saints to win the NFC South.
this is the biggest storyline that nobody's really thinking about. Saints in the playoffs. It's
Yeah,
book it. Book it
I
right
like
now.
it. We're gonna do it after we're done recording. The odds makers have kind of made this a two-horse race with the odds because the Falcons come in second with +180, and there's just no doubt the Falcons want to be a ground and pound team after they drafted B. John Robinson sixth overall. That's their identity, and Tyler Algier ran for over 1,000 yards last year. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't care. They said, "Screw it. Give us this stud running back. We're just going to keep running it." they Atlanta was really one of the teams a lot of people thought made perfect sense for Lamar. You know, I could have seen that happening, but they seem like they like Desmond Ritter and they're kind of all in on the Desmond Ritter show in 2023.
Yeah.
Um,
This is a
the,
team that I was also excited about. I mean, when we were talking about the NFC South, um, it's kind of all filled in except for that QB position. I,
right.
when you think about it, they've got one of the greatest tight end prospects of of a long time. Kyle
Yeah.
Pitts, he's still a prospect. I mean, he hasn't really proven himself, but Drake London showed a lot of promise for them last year. I was telling you one of my favorite last round guys is Mac Hollins, and the running back you didn't even talk about was Cordarrelle Patterson. He's still on the
Oh
team.
yeah. Yeah. They got some really awesome young skill guys there. And they add Bijan into the mix now too. It's just loads of potential there. Um, and they did a good job this offseason retaining some key pieces on the offensive line. That's going to really help them and really help Ritter. And they don't need Ritter to be too much more than a game manager.
Yeah.
And he's a guy too. I think he can use his legs and a little bit more than we've seen so far. And this is an offense that I'll be excited to see. I think head coach Arthur Smith, he loves that ground and pound. He's committed to it, and I kind of like it. We need teams like that in the NFL. You know, with the passing league now, we need We need some of these teams that are like, you know what, we're just gonna let the bone roll.
So Artie Smith, just a quick story on him. He came on to the Pat McAfee show last week, and he was just talking, and he said one of his games last year, the offensive line asked him, and he had to dance around his words here because you'll see why in a bit. Um, Pat McAfee had heard that Artie Smith went out drinking with the offensive line after one of the games. And the offensive line approached him and said, "Hey, can we go take over that bar after the game and go party if we rush for 150 yards and win the game?" And Artie Smith said, "If you rush for over 150 yards as, the blocking offensive line and we win the game,
Mm-hmm.
we'll rent out the bar. We'll go out there and take it over." And
Nice.
uh he said there was no drinking in the locker room, but that he did do that. And that's a
That's
guy
great.
he's in it with his team. It just shows you how committed he is to that
Yeah.
the run game, and how the offensive line really kind of bonds and you know comes together with him and is comfortable enough to ask a question like that. That says a
Uh-huh.
lot to me. Honestly, it does.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story, Drew. And that just shows he's trying to connect with his guys. And that goes a long way with these players. So I love that story.
Awesome.
Um, Defensively, they have a cornerback, AJ Terrell. He's one of my favorite corners in the league. Um, but they kind of had to turn their entire secondary over outside of him. They went out, made an interesting trade, getting former top 10 pick Jeff Okuda to be his opposite corner there. And I kind of like that. Jeff Okuda is a guy that struggled with the Lions, but
Yeah.
I think he's a change of scenery guy. So,
Yeah. I mean, it was an easy pickup for them.
yeah, they didn't give up a ton for that. Um, and they went out and signed prize free agent safety Jesse Bates.
Yeah.
So, really, really interesting defense. Up front is kind of where maybe you would have some question marks, but they added some big boys with some big time experience. They got Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, and Eddie Goldman. So they're
Campbell is
hoping they can stop the
perfect.
run a little bit better this year.
What a perfect fit with Calais Campbell. I mean, he's in his twilight years, but this is a guy that always puts pressure on the quarterback.
Uh huh. Yeah,
I
and
think it's just a great fit for him there.
he's a guy that people gravitate to. He's kind of a leader on any defense he's on, and he's a guy. If the Falcons stumble out of the gates, he's a guy you can trade for and get a late round pick. I'm sure
That's
at
true.
the deadline. So I like that. I like those pickups along the defensive line. Um,
Ultimately, I honestly just kind of to chime in on the conversation of the two horse race. I mean, we went through and we listed the household names on the Saints defense. I'm looking here at the depth chart here. Arnold Ebiketie at the will linebacker. I know he's a rookie, kind of middle of the draft.
yeah.
David Onyemata. The outside of Calais Campbell, I just don't know if there's a whole lot here that you can say. My hot take here is this is going to be the difference maker between the Falcons and the Saints is the
Uh
defense.
huh. Yeah, I agree. Defense wins championships, and
Out.
um, but yeah, they're interesting though on defense. I just think they're probably a year or two away from being the actual defense they want to be. So I agree, Drew. Schedule. Yeah, you got anything else?
No, that's kind of it.
Schedule wise, they have the second easiest in the league, right behind the Saints. Um, but they don't have the net rest edge like the Saints do. They're minus 12. and that's one of the worst in the league.
Ooh. It might come
So
down to it, honestly.
another thing that's in the Saints' advantage, I think. We got move on to Carolina now. They're the Panthers, baby. Bryce Young show they're plus 400 to win, and they're hoping they have their new franchise quarterback and head coach, and Frank Reich, and
Yeah.
they're hoping it's a start of a new era of Panther football. I think they traded up with Chicago, gave up a lot of draft assets, and they traded DJ Moore to get that number one pick to draft Bryce Young, and starting fresh after the Matt Rule, Baker, Sam Darnold disaster last year. Just good to wipe that slate clean, man. That was a tough year, and a lot of Panthers fans they got to be hoping um, that they got their guy in Bryce Young because it's been tough since Cam Newton left.
It has. Listen,
Offensively, oh my bad, I
I
didn't mean to cut you
chime
off.
in real quick on the Panthers in general. Their owner, David Tepper.
Yeah,
Uh, Tepper is just a guy who we've seen over the past couple years just have kind of a short trigger with head coaches.
mm-hmm.
He needs the winning and he needs it now.
Yeah, yeah. He doesn't have time for any of this bullshit. I remember I heard some things about him when he came into the league. Um, he's an interesting owner for sure.
He certainly is. I mean, they've really redone this coaching staff and this roster, and it's just really a question mark.
Yeah. Um, and Frank Reich, I think, is a great hire for them because I think he's one of the best play callers in the league, and I think Bryce Young's going to respond to that, and he's gonna flash a lot of greatness playing in his system. I think Bryce Young, he's just got that he's just got that wizardry to him. He's little, but if you can block enough for him, give him enough time, man, he can sit back there and he can pick apart a defense. And he was my number one quarterback coming out, but I had C.J. Stroud right behind him, and it was really was a tough call. But I think Bryce Young, they go out and they trade for Adam Thielen. We've already talked about him, but that's just the perfect safety blanket for a young quarterback, trying to navigate the league as a rookie. Um, they got a lot of other interesting receiving targets we talked about last week. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how that comes together. They signed Miles Sanders too to a really nice deal. He got the most guaranteed money out of any running back this entire offseason.
Wow,
So I
good,
thought that
good.
was interesting.
Yeah,
And it kind of goes back to Dave Tepper. He's going to be willing to spend money there in
yeah,
Carolina. Um,
yeah. Just get the job done.
yeah, and I think it's also interesting. Sanders has a little bit of experience with Frank Reich. When they're in Philly, he was the offensive coordinator that year they won the Super Bowl. So they got a little bit of synergy there. And the O line though is pretty mid. I just Their performance will be a big determining factor in how good this unit can really be. It's going to be make or break time with that offensive line. I just don't. Maybe I'm biased because Baker kind of got a raw deal there last year, but I just thought their offensive line was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So we'll
Well,
see if it gets any better.
I want to say that it's time to slide a hot take in there.
Let's hear
I
it.
I'm gonna say I think they're gonna be booty cheeks.
You're gonna be
The
bad.
Panthers. Yeah, I don't think you can construct a Frankenstein roster and coaching staff all in one season. Just sort of, take this guy
Yeah,
from over here, take this guy from over there, trade up, draft the best quarterback in the draft. get rid of your best wide receiver, and boom, we're going to be a playoff team. It
Yeah.
takes some time. It takes time for somebody in that chain is going to have a struggle adapting. It
Yeah.
might be
It's
Frank
just
Reich.
there's no way it can't.
Yeah, I mean, it just there's too many new wide receivers. There's a brand new quarterback. There's a brand new coach,
Mm-hmm.
and you telling me about that offensive line there just kind of pushed me over the edge, and I just think there's too many question marks on this team.
Yeah.
One of them is gonna end up being a no go, and I think they're gonna have a bad year.
This is a kind of team that, like, on defense, I think they have some good pieces. I love a lot of the individual guys. I just don't know how well they're all going to mesh together, and I don't know about if the defensive coordinator. I don't. He's getting a new. I think this might be his first time calling plays, so there is just so much newness here, Drew. I agree. They could
Yeah,
they could be more. They could be a team that's better in like Madden in a video game than they are in real life because they do
yeah.
have. I mean, they went out and signed Von Bell, and I kind of like him paired with Xavier Woods. Pretty good safety combo right there. And Jeremy Chin's a player I'm high on. He can play a little nickel back, and they got a young defense. The front office has put a lot of resources behind. Um, I'm interested to see how it comes together.
Well,
But
that's
I
one of
like I
us.
like that take though because I have heard the Panthers could struggle a lot this year, just with all the moving parts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the NFL is a very, very hard league. I mean, all the thing about it is all of these guys are just they're the best at their craft, but when you get to this level of competition, all of a sudden if you have just one little cog in that wheel that just isn't working the way it should,
Yeah,
whether it's the offensive line or whether it's the defense or whether
or a
it's
receiver isn't happy. He's not
a
getting enough touches.
receiver, the quarterback is having a tough time adjusting, the head coach is behind the times, the defensive coordinator isn't calling the right plays because he's never done it before.
Uh huh.
Just there's just too many variables in there that you can have some guys who have tremendous talent and it just doesn't work out to win the game. You need to win 4 quarters of a game.
Right. No,
And
I agree. And this could be a team I look to bet under 6.5 wins. I think that's a big number for them. Oh, I lied. It's 7.5.
oh,
I mean,
I
that
don't,
could be, yeah. They have the fourth easiest schedule, so they have one of the easier schedules out there. They're going to play a lot of 50-50 games, and rookie quarterbacks usually don't come in and win that much, even though I am pretty high on Bryce Young. Um, so, yeah, I could look at that. -1 on the net restage, so pretty average on that end. But yeah, I kind of like the more we talked it out, kind of like them under. I need to have some unders in my portfolio anyway, so that might be one I hop on.
yeah. I mean, I think 7.5 is crazy for them.
Yeah, it's just the schedule, I think, is why they did that. And Frank Reich, man, I have a lot of respect for him. They're an interesting team, even though they may not win that much. They're gonna be very interesting with all the new parts there. Um, the Bucks, they got to move on to life without Tom Brady now, Drew, and that
Yeah,
might be when you lose a goat like that. Tampa Bay, no, it's no more. And
yeah.
so are the Bucks winning ways? Are they no more? Plus 800 now after winning this division last year. Um, And, they did lose more than they won last year, so I can't really. They're not really a playoff team, even though they made it last year.
They had Tom Brady, who still did score in the top 3 in fantasy points, which is crazy.
Yeah, that was insane because they just could never. They couldn't convert third downs to save their life last year. I think it was the worst by far in Tom Brady's career as third down percentage or conversion percentage. And of there was just some weird stuff. And now they have to play a first place schedule. And this looks like a rebuilding year, Drew. Even though I love my boy Baker, it looks like a rebuilding year.
I mean, Jay, I want to actually kind of challenge you on that because, yes, you are right. They are paying off credit card bills right now. Um, the GM
Yeah.
of the GM of the Buccaneers went on the Pat McAfee show probably about a year ago and was talking about this and was saying that they strategically looked at these couple of years that they had with Tom Brady and said, we need to make a push. And obviously it paid off for them. I mean, they won a freaking Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And you're looking at the roster right now, and you're looking at the fact that Tom Brady is gone. They are paying off the credit card. But I sit here and say, I look up and down and say, Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, quarterback competition, interesting. Rashad White, he showed some promise last year. He's their starting running back. He's young. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Trey
Yeah.
Palmer at wide receiver, Tristan Wirfs at left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
My guy Cody Mock, I don't know if you know of him. Oh,
Yeah. Offensive lineman.
dude, he's crazy. He's the funniest looking guy.
To your boy.
I love him. And then they drafted in their first round Kalijah Cansey. He's going to be starting at defensive end for them. He is something to consider there. They have Vita Vea. They have Devin White, Levante David,
Yeah.
Jack
They,
Barrett, Antoine Winfield, Carlton Davis. Come on, Jay. I mean,
yeah,
rebuild year.
they got some names, man. I mean, but I kind of just feel like they a lot of those guys mailed it in last year. I don't know for whatever reason the Bucks would just come out and play so sleepy.
They did.
And I don't I just I had they really put a bad taste in my mouth last year cuz Drew, I was betting on them a lot. They were
Yeah,
just fucking me.
they did.
Um
Sleepy. I mean, but
I remember
how
we had
much of
some.
that was the dark cloud of Tom Brady going through divorce?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't there all the whole training camp really, or like in the summer stuff. And there was just a lot of weirdness with this team. So I'm excited to see Baker. I'm hopeful. They go out and sign Baker, and he's got some good targets to throw to. Rumors are he and Mike Evans have a really good connection already. And I've been drafting Evans a lot in best ball. Um, and Baker just had a wild season last year,
He did.
going to the Panthers, then going to the Rams, and coming in that Thursday night game and beating the Raiders. Really looked like the team was rallying behind Baker. That's just what Baker needs. He needs a team that's going to believe in him. And I'm hoping it's the Bucks, man. I'm hoping they can put that. They get Byron Leftwich out of there, and I think that's good. He was horrendous calling plays last year. They would just, I don't know what he was thinking. Um,
You
and they
know,
bring in,
I
yeah,
wanted to say one thing on the quarterback competition. Um,
yeah,
this was something that Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk was talking about. And, this is kind of his first year coming out and saying this, but he says he is not a big fan of quarterback competitions. And he laid out an interesting thesis for it, which is number one, you are creating, you're going to create an unhealthy atmosphere because the guys on the team don't know who they're reporting to. They don't
Yeah.
know who is their leader right now. And number two problem with having a quarterback competition that lasts this far into the preseason, this far, close to the start of the regular season, is that that guy needs to be spending that time with his team. He doesn't know if it's him yet.
Uh-huh.
And they're splitting up the time between these two guys because they're trying to decide. But that guy needs to be spending more time with the ones. And they're splitting time right now. Baker Mayfield,
Yeah.
Kyle Trask, they need to make their decision soon.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be Baker. I think they came out and said he's pretty much going to be the guy last week.
Oh,
He started the first preseason game, and yeah, the offensive line's got to be better than it was last year. They have some names up there, but that right side of their line has to be better. The right tackle and right guard. Um,
well, they've got Cody Mock.
oh yeah, your boy.
This guy's
I
missing
actually
two front
drafted him,
teeth.
Drew. I actually drafted him in my Jags franchise. I
Dude,
think he's a rookie right now,
he's
or it
straight
might
off
be
of
his
the
second
phone.
year. But yeah, defensively, real quick, Drew, and we'll get out of here. We talked about all the names they have. They got some dogs on this defense,
They really do.
and Todd Bowles is a very good game planner. They should be able. This should be a top 10 scoring defense. It really should be. They are going to have to play that tougher schedule this year than a lot of the division. So that's kind of why I would stay away. And I think that's why they're such heavy underdogs at plus 800,
You
just
know,
because they're going to have to play I mean, we said it, the Saints and Falcons play the two easiest in the league, and Panthers aren't far behind them. So it's interesting, though, because they have so many stud players. I just don't know. Are they kind of checked out? Have they all gotten paid? Have they all got their contracts and they're kind of checked out? I don't know.
Vita
I hope
Vea
not.
is not. Vita Vea was a beast last year.
Yeah, there's just a big boy up front, just big
Uh-huh.
Hawaiian. Just I love him. I love Antoine Winfield Jr. I love Shaq Barrett. I mean, they got some guys, and I hope Todd Bowles gets them to play with some inspiration this year. Because last year they were I didn't like watching the Bucks last year. They were just, I don't know,
Best.
they were. So
You were talking about they got some big names on the defense. Just real quickly, I do want to give a couple names for the all name team.
yeah,
They've got on the defense, both at the will linebacker. They've got a rookie this year, Yaya Diaby. Love that
yeah,
name.
yeah.
Um, he actually might be something. He has a really really incredible athletic profile.
Okay,
Um,
name to remember.
they've also got another one. Going to be maybe hard to remember this one. Hamilcar Rashed.
That can't. That's not a real person.
I swear to God, Hamilcar, Hamilcar, Hamilcar.
What positions he play?
He plays linebacker for them.
Getting into some car wrecks, baby.
Anyway,
Hope they
that's
can
all
find
I.
some good nicknames for those guys.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we'll
yeah,
be
that's
far.
that's gonna wrap up NFC South. I think Drew, we're pretty much in agreement. We like the Saints in this division,
Yeah,
and just like what they're cooking down there in New Orleans.
I
But
like the Falcons. Don't get me wrong.
yeah, yeah, I think it is a two-horse race with those two. Not to say that the Panthers or Bucks couldn't do it either. This division is wide open, and so much newness with coaching coming in and quarterbacks. So definitely was a fun and interesting division to break down. A lot of good stuff with the fantasy players there at the end of your drafts, getting some clarity on those wide receivers. So this was a fun one, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we got anything to plug or anything with Tech Corner before we get out of here?
Yeah, let's do Tech Corner. Um, so we talked last week about typing mind. Um, let's go with I think one thing that is going to be really interesting with technology going forward. Oh, this has got a lot of people on kind of both sides of the equation of what you really think of it, but AI generated images. I'm sure you've seen some of them.
Yeah, I've heard
Um,
of it.
I mean, this is just going to create something interesting if you're an artist, if you're someone who needs ideas for art,
Uh
if
huh.
you're someone who needs graphics for something like this, you can go on Discord and you can. Uh, the thing with technology is you need to learn how to talk to a computer, right? Which is kind of hard. Try describing to a computer. Try describing an image.
Uh huh.
But if you can get good at that, right? The idea of writing a prompt that a computer understands and it can create an image for, that's a skill set, Jay. That's a
Oh yeah,
skill
that's
set
interesting.
going into the future. How to describe a raw image just from your mind. Just think up how to describe an image that you want to come to life. And the thing with technology is it's just going to do exactly what you tell it to do.
Right. That's awesome.
And it's going to fill in the blanks of what you forget to tell it to do.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of know every aspect of, how an image needs to be described. But I think it's something to just keep an eye on, as we kind of go into this sort of new world of technology. Think
Hmm.
about images and a helpful thing is maybe take a look at an image and reverse engineer it, describe it. Looking at an image, describe how you might tell a computer what that image
Yeah.
is, and then flip it around and now try and imagine an image and then tell the computer and see if you can come up with something, see if the computer can give you something that you're trying to describe.
Hell yeah, dude. I love that. That's
Uh,
uh that's something I have to look into more. I think just content creators too, man. They could love doing that kind of stuff. Having
yeah.
for like, I'm kind of just thinking like for my Mavs blog, one of the things I have to do is find some images about stuff I was writing about. You know, maybe two or three images a blog. So if somehow that could come to life and I could do that, that would open up a lot of creative stuff people can do for sure.
They're a
So,
little tough with faces. I'll have to
oh
say that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That I don't know how you would describe somebody's face.
No, I mean,
But,
like you can describe Dirk Nowitzki or Patrick Mahomes or something, and it'll kind of get a little bit of the way there, but it's not there.
oh,
I'll
oh, I
text you
see.
some pictures, Jay. Patrick Mahomes' renditions was hilarious.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, Drew, that's interesting stuff. I don't really have anything I want to share. Nothing really came to me this week, but I love that, man. But I think that's going to be it. Find your inner pirate. You got anything else you want to add, Drew?
Just looking forward to seeing you for our draft.
Yeah, we got 2 weeks from today. I'll be up there in Tennessee with you, buddy. We'll do our fantasy draft. It'll be a ton of fun.
I'm so excited. I think we've got a really unique um, structure for how we're going to do the draft in those first 7 rounds. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I predict there's going to be a lot of trades actually.
Hell yeah. yeah, I'm looking forward to getting up there and meeting the guys. So,
Yeah.
ton of fun, buddy. That's gonna be it for today. Peace out.
All right, Jay. Peace out. Find your inner pirate.